Hi everyone, my name is Leah Rose, and for those of you who are unfamiliar with my work, I am a spiritual medium and an empowerment mentor. And I'm so passionate about helping divorced women work through their healing and rebuild their lives after divorce. And I'm so passionate about this because I went through it myself. My divorce was such a huge and profound catalyst for change. And it's actually how I came to be in this line of work. And so, because of my divorce, I am now a mindfulness and meditation expert. I'm a breathwork facilitator, an energy healer, and an intuitive. And this was all because I worked through my healing and I really connected with my intuition and my spirit guides and all of the many spiritual tools that are available to us. And so what you're about to see is a conversation between myself and my dear friend and student who has also utilized some of these tools that I teach. And it's really a conversation about our journey through divorce and how we rebuilt our lives after divorce. So I hope that it brings you inspiration and I hope that it's insightful as to your next steps ahead. And if you stick around until the end, I do have a gift for you. So stay tuned and I'll see you at the end. Hi, everyone. Leah Rose here. For those of you who don't know me, I am a spiritual medium and empowerment mentor. I'm also the founder of the Goddess in You program that helps women to heal and rebuild their lives after divorce. And today I have a very, very good friend of mine with us. Her name is Marissa. She's gone through the program and she's here to share the tools that really worked for her for regulating her nervous system, for healing her emotional trauma through her divorce, and for rebuilding her life. So, welcome, welcome, Marissa. I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. Oh my gosh, this is long overdue. Long
Yes.
overdue. We've been talking about having a conversation now that I am independently using all the tools on my own,
Mhm.
and really able to regulate when something comes up, being able to work through it myself and independently using all the things that we've gone through over the past couple of months.
Right.
And it's really been an incredible journey and continues to be a journey. I think you and I talk a lot about how you're never officially healed, right? But it's a practice, and every day you're sort of moving that needle
Mhm.
a little bit closer to what you want your life to look like and how you want to feel in your
Yes.
life. And so, yeah, I just think, should I start right out?
Yeah, why don't you start by talking a little bit about where you were? Well, first of all, I have to say, Marissa and I have been friends since we were what, like 10?
Yep.
I mean, we
We
started
were wee
playing,
little.
yeah, we started playing softball together and we went to school together for a while. And then we like lost touch and then we reconnected here and there. And then, like, randomly, um, I had spoken with Marissa, and then like a few months later, I got a holiday card from her, and I happened to text her, and I was like, "Oh, you look so beautiful. The kids look great, whatever." And then she reached out, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm actually going through a divorce." And then it kind of started this whole process of us like reconnecting, and I kind of shared with her my healing journey and all of the things that I had done to really move through my healing. um, and then the rest is history. We're just back to being bosom buddies. So, but I'm really happy to see how much, she's transformed from where you started until now. And you're right, there is always a healing process. There's always a way for us to expand and to kind of manifest the things in our life and live more intentionally. So there's always room for growth, basically. And so, as I said, I'm really so happy to see how far you've come. And if you'd like, you can start off at the beginning, how you were feeling when we first started talking, and then maybe we'll move from there.
Yes. God. Okay. What was I feeling when we first came together? When we first came together, I was in a state.
Mhm.
That's the easiest way to put it. I was in a state, right? So my entire life changing. I felt out of control. I felt out of alignment. I didn't know how to heal my grief. I wasn't even really able to identify that I was grieving and, angry. And I really had a, a big line of thinking related to victimhood. Like, this happened to me. Um, it was not a healthy place to be.
Mhm.
And when we came together, I'll never forget the first time that you taught me how to meditate. You led me through my first meditation, and I had tried here and there, but I thought it was just closing your eyes and trying to go blank and, trying to make your mind completely quiet, which is
Right.
not the case.
Mhm.
And it was such an emotional experience, an emotional release. And I saw things and felt things on such a deep level. It was like immediately I began to shed, all of these layers of pain and who I thought I had to be. And that was really like the starting point.
Mhm.
And I've said this before in our conversations that, like, from there, all the tools that we worked through and that you taught me,
Mhm.
you really gave me permission to start living my life. I mean, at that point, I don't know where I would be right now. And it almost seems like a completely different person. I mean, I
Yeah.
just could not really, I was just not functioning that well. And now I just feel like I'm very clear headed.
Mhm.
I can work through anything that comes up. I'm able to sort of step away from it and not be in it. My energy is really protected. I'm able to see it from afar,
Right.
um, and work through it and identify and really think about what is the end goal of my response or my next step, or um, making decisions that are healthy
Mhm.
and not based in fear and not based in pain or an instant gratification. We've talked a lot about the ego
Mhm.
in your program, and just finding that quiet space to really calm my nervous system has been a game changer. And I can feel when I'm out of balance, right? So then, like, I'm like, okay, I have to go back to using those tools and getting back on track. And then it's like an easy
Right.
quick fix for me to, like, keep going on that path versus falling off and, having negative self-talk
Right.
get in the way. So,
So what do you
um,
think um so you mentioned the meditation in the beginning, and that was kind of like what kickstarted the whole thing, right?
that was the channel. That was the channel opener.
Yeah. And so I had a similar experience too. I was very much like you when I got divorced. Like I was just completely anxiety stricken. I had no idea who I was. I know I had no idea what I wanted. Like I was afraid. Like I was like, what is going to happen to my life now? I've got kids. Like I'm by myself. Like what am I doing? And I had been a stay at home mom. But for me, that energetic space that you experienced in your meditation, I experienced that in breath work, which is another tool that I introduced to you. But um, so yeah, I would say that it's similar for both of us. Like that kind of kickstarted the whole thing for me too. I was like, whoa, like there's a whole other um like my consciousness, like there's a whole other consciousness that I wasn't even aware of. Like I was so just kind of I think most of my life I've just been very reactive, and I wasn't living with intention, and I didn't know how to pull guidance from my inner being or my higher self, or however you want to describe that space. But that's what meditation did for me. It made me realize, like, okay, like there is a place within me that I can access through meditation that will provide guidance, and it's outside of any fear or limitation. And so, just watching you in that first meditation, I saw that. Like, I saw the moment when you actually, like, were in that space, and I saw like the change in you. So it was really amazing to see. Um, but yeah, that I would say would be like step one, right? Was that like that was probably like the
Yeah, I
Kickstarter?
mean, it was very different from, I've been in therapy also,
Hmm.
which I find helpful on different levels, but I didn't you can talk until you're blue in the face, but until you feel
Hmm.
that feeling
Hmm.
and that space and that place where you're no longer, like you said, reactive. And immediately I'm thinking of like a pinball machine, just like ping, 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 like
Yes.
just responding off of every person and every situation and everything.
Yep.
It's exhausting.
Yep.
And that was like the first time that I felt like that I've been whole all along. I don't have to do anything to prove anything.
Yep.
I just am. I am.
Yes.
And it was a feeling. And even though I've been a yoga practitioner for years,
Hmm.
I've had glimpses of that here and there, like during practice or after practice, but not as this was really deep, like
Hmm.
way in there.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think it was the feeling. And after the meditation, I went for a walk on the beach. And then it was really like later that day that like just things just started to shift almost immediately.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that like, everything was honky dory after that. I had
Yeah.
many, many more moments
Right.
of feeling those anxious feelings or, being reactive or grieving. But like I could always come back to that.
Hmm.
And then um, it was just like, it was a place of peace
Right.
where I didn't have to think. And whatever came up, I just allowed it and let it go.
Right.
And that was like the first step, I think, in moving forward in the direction that I wanted my life to go.
Right. Right. And what people don't realize too, I think, with meditation is there's so many different types of meditation. There's meditation for like inner child work. There's meditation to relieve stress. There's meditation to just practice presence. There's meditation to open your intuition. Um, and so I think people get a little bit put off because they, like what you said earlier, they just think that they have to clear their mind, and like who can clear their mind these days? Like we have too much stuff going on in our head. So it's a very tall feat for someone who's never done it before. But then as you start to do it and you start to connect with that space, you start to be able to use it in different ways. And like you said, I think it's just that place of peace and presence. And then you start to get those intuitive hits, whether they're visually or whether it's thoughts that come in that are just very based in um, like an inner knowing, right? It's not based in fear. It's not based in like, oh, well, I need to do this because this person will think that, or I need to do this because this is what's expected of me. It comes from a deep place of knowing when you go into meditation like that. And so it's a process of opening up your intuition. Is that how you would sum that up?
That's a pretty good sum up. Yeah. So it's interesting because I've been meditating for almost, 9 months, maybe.
Yeah.
Not every single day, but I think it was like 175 days that I've meditated.
Oh,
So I was
nice.
pretty happy with that. That's a good record.
Yeah, big
And,
time.
we were having the conversation the other day where I'll use it, like sometimes I'll use an app to start meditating and I will choose different avenues, for this or for that. But it never really goes in that direction. Like it just like it helps me to tap in. And
Right,
then I've only recently, right? Because it's a practice. Only recently have I been finding sort of my own way in. So,
right.
like, I'm more focusing on the sensations of the body, and that's really bringing me into the present. You can only think one thing at a time, right? So, when I'm focusing on the body,
Mhm.
um, everything else just kind of falls away. And then I'm really tapped and tuned in.
Right, right.
Um, but that's through many conversations with you.
Yes.
We've had a lot of conversations about what does this mean if this comes up, or what does that mean, or you've given me a lot of guidance on like, okay, that's really inner child work, or that's shadow work,
Mhm.
or that's limiting belief work. And then that really like gets into a lot of the other tools that we've used.
Right.
Do you want me to talk about some of those
Yeah,
tools,
well,
or do you want
that brings me to the whole kind of mindset and belief work, because that's obviously, imperative if you want to start really building a new foundation for your life that's aligned with your higher self and what you actually want. And I think that people, we just don't realize that we live with these things. Like, these are beliefs that are instilled in us from our parents, and whether they're limiting beliefs or fears, and then it just kind of like layers and stacks on top of each other throughout our all of our relationships. And then before you know it, like, we have these subconscious beliefs that are just holding us back, like we're not good enough, or not smart enough, pretty enough, skinny enough, whatever it is. Like, we create these boundaries and limitations for ourselves without even knowing it. So if you could speak a little bit to what, your limiting beliefs were, or how that realization helped you to move through your life differently.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to get too personal and share too many details about my relationship, but I think the interesting thing was I sort of mentioned that I was sort of stuck in victimhood a little bit at the start of my divorce and separation. It
Mhm.
was really easy to point the finger at, my partner or whatever the situation was. And then as we got deeper into our work in your program, like I really found that like I played an active role because of all of these deep subconscious beliefs that I never even recognized. I just was going about my life doing whatever I wanted, and always really feeling I always had this sense of urgency, or I would get a thought that I wanted to do something, and then what's the word that I'm looking for, where you just have to do it.
You're just
Starts with an
impulsive.
I. Impulsive,
Yeah.
yeah. So I had this like impulsiveness because I never wanted to think anything through, never wanted to feel anything.
Right.
Because if I felt things, then I was going to have to slow down and
Right.
make a different decision because I would have those realizations. But I think, you know, definitely some of those limiting beliefs were that I really have to work for love,
Mm,
that someone's not going to love me just the way that I am.
right.
Um, and so it was almost like I had to put on a performance for somebody to love me. And then when I really think about, my relationship, that's how it started off.
Hmm.
And the funny thing is that he, I feel, was probably doing the same thing. So we were mirroring each other, showing
Right.
each other these great sides of us that weren't the real deal.
Right.
And that's how we started our relationship. So you can only really hang on to that
Yep.
and keep that up for so long before the real you comes out. And so, it did take very long for things to go south, but we hung on for a long time. And then it really like instilled more of those limiting beliefs.
Right.
Because it was like feeding,
Yeah.
feeding the machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so I can see it now, like in my everyday decisions, how that comes up, except now I can identify it. I can work through and walk myself through what's really going on,
Hmm.
right? The reality of the situation without my interpretation.
Right.
Um, and then I can make an informed decision. And so it's really slowed down my decision making. It's slowed down. I mean, I would say, I don't want to say my impulsiveness is gone, because things come up, but I can ride the wave a lot better and see that's going to go by.
Yeah.
I don't have to do something when feelings come up or those impulses come up.
Right.
I can wait and then they pass. And so I'm getting better at recognizing that it's a wave,
Hmm.
and then holding out so I don't make, a decision that's going to throw me off balance.
Right.
But yeah, I would say that was probably the biggest limiting belief that I had.
Mhm.
Um, and also, I think the interesting thing is that, if I had never learned any of the tools or gone through the program, I would just be continuing to live my life that way,
Mhm.
and I would just, if I want, if I felt something uncomfortable, I wouldn't sit with it and feel it. I would just do something else impulsively to mask those
Right.
uncomfortable
Which
feelings.
then compounds all of
And
your issues. And then you
yes,
just make
right. And
yeah.
then like after I do that, then I have even worse feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
then like it's vicious cycle. So I think, you know, I really like the science behind a lot of the things that we went through in the program, just about, how your thoughts and emotions and feelings and body work is all connected.
Mhm.
Um, and you really have to practice it. You can read all you want, you can talk all you want,
Yeah.
but until you actually do the things
Yeah.
consistently, right? I think like that was like a huge takeaway that, we had weekly work that we were doing, and it's not like we're doing it for anybody else. I'm doing it for myself so that I can live a life that's true to who I really am,
Mhm.
which I had completely forgotten about.
Yeah.
I think I'd forgotten about it probably after I was 15 years old.
Yes.
Like it was that deeply covered up with,
Yep.
all these experiences and mistakes. And, it really compounds
Mhm.
over 20 something years. So it's like getting back to that person
Yep.
who is so comfortable in their own skin
Yes.
and joyful and happy and doing the things that I want to do, has been like amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say that because, like, I just feel like our experience was pretty similar, and I think a lot of people experience the same types of limiting beliefs and the way that they, because a lot of times you'll basically repeat the same relationships over and over and over too, and like you're like, well,
Sure
why do I have
do.
such bad luck? Yeah, and you're like, but you're actually creating that. You know what I mean? Through
Yeah.
your
Why am
beliefs.
I choosing partners that aren't choosing me? This
Yes,
is so
exactly.
weird.
Exactly. And so for me, I think when I was going through this whole process, one thing that I realized was like if I felt triggered by something, it actually had to do with something that I needed to heal. So, like a lot of times before I made that realization, I would always be like kind of in the victim mindset, like, oh, well, he treated me like this, and like, how dare he? And like, this like victim, but really, I realized that when I was really triggered by something, there was healing to be done. So, like, you're going to experience your emotions. And like, the problem is we need to take a look at what that means to us and then create boundaries or make the necessary actions to align ourselves with peace or however we want to feel. But I think a lot of times it's so easy to just like point the finger at the other person and then not actually deal with like the fact that you're playing a role in it. You know what I mean? You're allowing it to happen or you're attracting it based on different things that you're carrying with you through your beliefs and whatnot. So that was huge, and that's where that limiting belief really um I started to examine those, and I really started to see like, wow, like I've really been like creating and attracting all of this in my life, like all of the chaos, everything. um like I actually played a huge role in that, and that was like kind of empowering because then I was like, well, I don't have to do that anymore. Like I don't have to do
Yeah.
that. But the other thing too was that I think that for many years, like I was so reactive, and I lost track of who I was, like you said. And I remember like any decision that I had, or say I had an argument with my ex-husband, um, it was like I couldn't even, I, I didn't have any sense of knowing within myself. I couldn't tap into that. So I had to look for validation from everybody else. So then I'd start picking up the phone, calling my mom, calling my sisters, calling my friends. What do you think about this? And I don't know. I didn't like this and blah, blah, blah. And I had to always like constantly have this validation or like guidance from others. And so
Yeah.
once I actually started to dig deeper, I was like, wait a minute, like I already have this all right here inside of me. I just need to kind of calm my mind and like look inward. So it's been interesting seeing you go through that same process and like what an impact it has, because you feel solid, it's not like, and of course, like things are going to come up, but then, like, okay, if I'm triggered, there's something that I need to look at, you know?
Yes.
So,
Yeah. And I think also, like, when you're in a frazzled state,
hmm
everything's going to frazzle you.
hmm
Whereas if you're calm and grounded,
yeah,
like just energetically,
yes,
uh, you can approach things a little more discerningly, right?
hmm
So, like, or you can prepare a little bit better. Like, okay, I know this is going to be a difficult conversation. These are my boundaries. You're a
true.
lot more intentional
hmm
because you have the clarity and the mental space to be intentional,
Yes,
right? If you're frazzled, you're just like already fried. You just
yeah,
like can't even handle,
hmm
you can't handle anybody else's stuff because you can't even handle your own stuff. So
yeah.
I think, yeah, I don't know.
It all
It's
just
just
like
like
feeds
interesting.
in to each other,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just interesting to reflect back on, you know, 9 months ago that
Yeah,
like things have shifted so dramatically.
yeah,
And like, it's a process. Like you said, it's not like instantaneous, and it's not, um, you make one decision and then you might falter a little bit, but like you always go back to like making that forward progress. And sometimes it just doesn't feel like progress. And then
yeah, yeah,
you prove to yourself, you just keep proving to yourself again and again. And then you
yes.
realize like you had this all along.
hmm
It's just taken a while to like find yourself again,
Right.
like who you really are deep down.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's really interesting the whole process. And then even with like being intentional and starting to manifest the things that we want in our life, like that's another whole set of tools that you can access too, just by looking at your beliefs and then creating intention and boundary around that, and then also really stepping into the person that you want to be. I think a lot of times we're like, oh well, I want to manifest this thing, but it's like we're still allowing ourselves to be held back in certain ways, or the fear is still there. And so it's really understanding, like, how do we let the fear go and how do we really step into this next version of ourselves? And then once we do that, everything starts to fall into place too.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. Okay, so are there any other takeaways or any other tidbits of advice or anything that you have for?
Um, yeah, I think the only other thing that I want to say is that, um, it doesn't matter. I would say, like, as far as like your program goes, right? Like, I started the program maybe 4 months after my separation, so things were still really fresh.
Mhm.
But I don't feel like that's a necessity for, inquiring and looking in to the
Yeah,
program. I think that if I had come across it a year later, it would have been just as powerful, if not more, because I would have continued to make the same mistakes based on all the things we just
yeah,
talked about. Right? If anything, I would have been in a deeper, darker place than I am now because I
yeah,
just didn't know how to manage,
yes,
all of my emotions. And also, like, I really appreciated like the tap into spirituality, which is something I've always wanted,
Mhm.
but didn't really know how to access, or learn about. So I think that wherever you are in the process of your divorce, like, you just learn so many things about yourself. Ultimately, that's what we all want, right? You want to know yourself well enough that you can make decisions towards, building the life that you really want, manifesting the life that you really want, that you really have always dreamed of, from that really deep core place of you.
Mhm.
And so I think that's like the thing that I was thinking about, like, geez, what would all of the horrible decisions I would have made. We've talked about this with humor. All the horrible decisions that I could have, and I would have made over the last 9 months that would have left me just absolutely destroyed, had we not coincided again
Yeah.
in our friendship, and then with all of your guidance and help. So I'm super thankful. But I think for anyone that's watching, just knowing that it's never too late. Um, and the tools are really, they're part of my everyday life. Anytime an emotion comes up, they're part of my everyday life. Whereas before, I would just furiously clean the house or do something totally different to ignore what's going on
Yeah.
with me
Go
because I
jog
don't want to
five
deal with that
miles
right
or
now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
So it's like it's allowed me to face things and manage things and move through things, and like I feel light and great and happy, peaceful.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's so great to hear. And like I talk to people sometimes about like this whole process, and it's funny because a lot of times when people talk about working through their healing, they're like, "Oh, it's going to be so much work. Oh, it's just like it's going to be horrible." And like the thing is that yes, it is work, but at the same time it's sort of fun. Like at least it was for me. I don't know. I was just like every time like an emotion came up, like yeah, no, it's not like a good time to sit there and have to take a hard look at yourself and really look at what's going on. But as you move through it, you just feel so much lighter and it just becomes like, oh, okay, like I got this. Like here's another
yeah,
emotion, I'm going to take a look at it and then I'm going to move through it. And then, you know what I mean? So it just becomes like second nature. And it's just a process of like training yourself to, approach whatever's going on in your life from that standpoint.
yeah,
So
definitely retraining.
yeah, yeah. The mind is such a
You retrained me.
yeah, right? Yeah. The mind is like such a powerful thing, and it's just like I don't know. I think the subconscious mind a lot of times is what's really driving the bus. And so you have to, that's why when you go to therapy, I think a lot of times it just kind of, it, it helps, of course. It's good to identify different patterns and whatever's going on. But there's like this whole underneath layer that you're probably not aware of. And like that's where I found meditation and breath work was very it just like illuminated all of these things that I had no idea. I was like, wow, like I need to move through this and this is what I've been hanging on and this thing is from childhood and like, so it's empowering,
Yeah,
I think. It was for me
yeah,
anyways.
totally. Easy to say, oh yeah, that's not a good behavior. I shouldn't do that again from
Yeah.
a talk therapy point of view, but
Yeah.
you're still going to do it again.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Because you
Yeah.
haven't gotten to the root of the issue. Like
Yes.
I remember being like, yep, that's a bad decision. And I just like, I already knew.
But I'm gonna do it anyways.
Didn't matter if it was a bad decision. I was doing it because it fed this little part of me that's like, no. It was like rebellion almost. It's like I'm not gonna get in line with that because this is feeding my ego and my frenzy.
Yes.
And I was stuck in that fight or flight.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Um,
Yep. Yeah. The whole thing.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, we've had a great time. We've had a great time these last 9 months, and there's been a lot of tears, but like after the rain, right? So like,
yep.
It didn't happen now. Like I think like also like I don't want this to affect me 10 years from now. So like, might as well support myself and like really get to the deep root of it all.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Well, it's been amazing.
And that deep root is peaceful.
All right. That's what I like to hear. Yeah, no, it's been an amazing journey and I've enjoyed every minute of it with you. It's been really a beautiful thing to see you move through all of this and just see where you were when you started until now. So that was a bit of a glimpse into our healing journey through divorce. And if you're interested in utilizing these tools for yourself, I have created an embodiment journal that you can find in the description below. And it will help you to identify some of your limiting beliefs that are holding you back from creating the life that you truly desire. It will also provide some visualizations and strategies to start making soul based decisions, to start learning how to develop your self worth and your self care, and to really cultivate joy and happiness in your life. And so I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that it brings you inspiration and motivation to move forward. And if you have any questions or if you're interested in learning more about the Goddess in You program, the link is in the description below as well.